Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot. Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV, Parrot TV. Listen to the people, listen to humanity, listen to the Parrot, Parrot TV, 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 Parrot TV.
The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV, the voice for humanity. Hello, welcome to the Parrot Literary Corner. I'm Dustin Pickering, your noble and honest host. Today we have Todd Cirillo. Todd Cirillo has been called, quote-unquote, the best American poet writing clean, honest lines. He is co-founder and editor of 6 Foot Swells Press and one of the originators of the After Hours poetry movement. His latest book is Kisses from a Straight Razor, published by Epic Rights Press 2020. Other books include Sucker's Paradise, Burning the Evidence, Roxy, 3 for the Road, Everybody Knows the Dice Are Loaded, and Still a Party, This Troubled Heart, Sexy Devils, and more. Todd has performed across the United States, and his poems have appeared in numerous national and international literary journals, magazines, and cocktail napkins everywhere. Quite an accomplishment on those napkins. Todd lives in New Orleans, Louisiana, where he seeks out shiny moments and strange wisdom. His website is www.toddcirillo.com. Thanks for joining us today, Todd. How is life in New Orleans?
Hey, Dustin. Thank you so much for having me. Well, it's coming back. It's coming back here, from the storm, from Hurricane Ida a month ago.
Right.
So it's coming back here in the bayou towns, not so much. They pretty much got devastated and wiped out. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah, there's just these natural disasters are growing and killing, and just it's getting really bad all over the world. And we were hit with we've been hit a couple of times in Houston here. I'm in Houston. We were hit a couple of times and flooded pretty bad. I think we've recovered pretty well from them, but we had a couple that came through here in the last 10 or so years, and we have the constant rain all the time, and it's not usual. But anyway, it's great that we have poetry to talk about. So I would ask, poetry related to the poetry. How would you describe your poetic style and its evolution over the years?
That's a good question. My poetic style is very simple. And it gets into sort of what like after hours poetry is, which is ultimately it's just believable. Mm-hmm. And it is writing a poem with economy of language.
Right.
So having the biggest impact with the fewest words. Mm-hmm. And sort of like having a little cherry bomb in your hand. Right. You give it to someone and then it just goes off. So a lot of it being believable. I don't necessarily call it confessional, but I bet you most of my books, if someone wanted to write an autobiography, they would just take all my poems and books and put them into, between 2 hardcovers, and there it would be. Mm-hmm. A lot of people say like accessible. Every poet kind of says that, like, oh, my stuff's really accessible. But ultimately, I believe if the poet has to explain their poem to an audience, then the poet has failed.
Yeah. If you can't get something out of it as a reader yourself, then, even if it's sort of obscurantist and abstract, if you read it and you don't have it, if the reader cannot, it's like telling a bad joke, and then somebody has to explain the joke. It's like, if you have to explain the joke, you've lost it. So yeah. I agree. If I explain what the poem means, then there's no point. Then I become the subject,
Yeah, that's a wonderful way to put it. I've never heard it put that way, but I'm going to steal it and use it from now on.
You can put it in a poem and then explain it.
Yeah.
On the Parrot Literary Corner, and this guy has the audacity to say, if you have to explain the poem, you're the subject, not the poem loses its quality. And then people will say, wow, I want to be on the Parrot Literary Corner and hear that kind of stuff.
That's
Excellent.
right. Yeah,
Good
exactly. And as far as an evolution, I think it's just, it's starting out with just putting whatever on the page from when you first start writing. And you're really, honestly, I think most people start writing because they're just moved by some event. It could be the loss of a first, partner. It could be that you asked someone to the dance and they said no, so you go home and write it. You didn't, someone didn't hug you enough, whatever it may be. But then from there, when you learn to craft a poem, and eventually you get to learning the right words, and working with an editor who you trust and really can understand the right word should be put down onto the page. So you don't waste the reader's time and you don't waste your own time,
Right. I kind of joke sometimes we must be masochists to still be poets after 20, 40 years. You're still writing poetry. I mean, there must be something above and beyond wanting to nail us to the cross. I mean, I mean, to an extent, it's a tedious thing, and it doesn't seem to really give you much of anything back as far as what people say socially is the things we desire as humans. It's just the sheer joy of the craft and the enjoyment of watching yourself grow over time through words.
Yeah, hopefully. I think it's easier now because so many people put out everything on social media, right? Just they just kind of put it out there. But I really do believe that the more believable a poem is, then the more relatable it's going to be, then the more accessible it's going to be. And a poem should really not be difficult, especially not for the reader.
Right.
Yeah.
What is the after hours poetry movement, and why would you found that? And do you think it's accomplished or is moving towards the direction you wish it would have from when you founded it?
No, I went, Dustin, I went for world domination.
Absolutely. Why not? Take over. I'm now the monarch of this planet. Right.
Yeah. I'm the purveyor of people poetry, something like that. But it basically was a group of like-minded poets who became close friends. And some of us are on the West Coast in California. Some of us are in Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. Some of us are in the middle of Kansas for some god-awful reason.
That's a weird place to be for a poet.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, but I tell you what, I did a poetry festival there, the Fountain Verse Poetry Festival, which was incredible. Just,
wow.
It turned out to be one of the most smile-inducing and destructive, long weekends that I think a group of poets could have. But it was magnificent because the organizers really went for treating poets like, for instance, like paying us, getting us Ubers from the airport, and bringing in just top-notch talent. But we had so much fun. But again, Kansas to me it's just brown, man. There's just almost nothing.
And did any houses fall and the scene turn black and white while you're there?
I wish they would have.
No place like home.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so, anyways, After Hours Poetry really is just a collection of these magnificent poets who have a similar philosophy of something as simple as that. If you have to explain your poem to the audience, then the poets failed. But also beyond that, the poetry readings themselves, when we get together, is really, a social occasion. And whether we get up on stage and we triumph or we bomb, it doesn't matter because we're all together and we trust one another and we feed off one another. And it really had the idea and the goal of bringing poetry to bus stops, bowling alleys, and bar rooms, and that was it.
Wow.
Yeah, some of the things we used to do was to like leave books in bars or truck stops or something like that, and just leave them there for whoever. Others are, we would just read in places and win the audience over, because when it was done, we would go out and we'd be standing right next to them at the bar, and so we had that. And so that's sort of the mentality. It's simplicity and poetry, and a lot of humor. Yeah.
Excellent. That's a good approach, I think. And I'm curious how you guys promote yourselves, and specifically you. How do you promote your own poetry? In terms of sales and getting your work recognized.
Well, Dustin, I'll tell you that it used to be where you're sending stuff out. You're like, when I have a new book out, I believe in supporting the publisher, meaning that whatever I can do. The only place you really sell books is by doing like live, readings and stuff.
Right, that's my experience too.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then you get to connect. Because really, again, we believe it should all be about connection. So getting out there, promoting it. And now there's social media, and which is good up to a point. But of course, we have our websites and on Instagram and Facebook. Like mine's 6 Foot Swells Press, but also like Epic Rights Press is probably the best underground press, poetry press, small poetry press that's in the entire North America right now. And it's really supporting the publishers, getting your name out there. But again, I've come to the point where it's like people can dilute what's out there, meaning they compete with themselves. Like people who are out there and they're writing a poem a day, or they're releasing 6 books in 3 months. Well, now you're just competing with yourself. And so to me, and I could be wrong, but to me, neither book is special then, and so it's really like the getting published in a bunch of places. I still put it out there, but I think I'm more selective now.
Right.
Yeah.
So you have certain publishers you return to, and you try to support them with your sales, and I feel the same way. It's like over the years, I've just wanted to get my work as widely diluted as possible, and then I gradually decided that I'd rather work with people who I can recognize as understanding and wanting to read my poetry and loving it and wanting to promote it, and I can also sell my book and help them out. I totally agree with you on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Like for instance, Dustin, I'm not out for likes and I'm out for good poems, because to really craft a good poem and to put something out there that actually people again can connect with, can believe in what they're reading, and can put themselves in whatever horrific and fucked up twisted situation that I get myself into. If I can put that to the reader and give that to them, then I consider that to be a like or a victory.
There's an old meme that floated around for a while that had this artist that was painting a picture, and it said likes, like 15 likes, and then it was a woman that was a model of some kind, and she had this really badly done art piece, and it like 5,000 likes. It's like, so those really are, that's the gist of it really is, it's not about if it's good or bad or anything, or and it's not really an official response to the work. It's not hitting a little button and making the little blue thumb go bleep. It's nothing. It's like it's basically if I were at a concert and I held my lighter up, I mean, that's fun. That's actually more fun than pushing the like button. But it's kind of like it doesn't really say anything if I'm just doing it. It's like saying, hey, I recognize you, I see you, but does it mean you're really, really there and present and experiencing it in a way, or understanding what's being written?
Yeah, no, I mean, you are right on with the analogies this evening.
I'm a poet. I have to be.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. Like, look, do you want to put? There's somewhat of like nowadays a real ego trip to like, hey man, I just wrote 18 poems. Well, but you didn't write 18 good poems.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you wrote 18 things down and you put them all out there, but.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I tend to think like when I'm putting a manuscript together, which I am right now, it's like I think of it as like a record album,
Mm-hmm.
you know?
Mm-hmm.
And that's how I try to craft it, because I want whoever sits and goes through it to really be into it. And the highest compliment that I can get is someone says, "Man, I read your book from the first page to the last, all in one sitting." You know?
Right.
Fantastic, man. Yeah.
It's an experience. It's you know, a book is an experience, and some people you can go through and read a couple of poems and reflect on them, and we've had writers who said they would rather that approach, and then there's writers like yourself who say if you read it all in one sitting and you've really taken that breath in, and understood what's being said. And I like this minimalist. I'm getting to where I'm writing poems that I still keep my sort of abstract, wild style, but I like to write poems that are really like micro poems. They pack a punch, and that's what I've been doing a lot lately. But it's interesting. So you're also an editor, and I'm curious how when you're choosing work when you're editing and making selections, how do you keep that separate from purely choosing something out of a subjective choice? Is there something you look for? I always wondered about that, because people say it's, poetry is a matter of personal taste, but is there a way to evaluate as editor a poem that you can look at and say, don't really care for this, I don't feel it, I don't relate to it, but I can see maybe what the craft is, or I can see what this person's doing?
Yeah, absolutely. So with the press that I have, with Matt Amott and Julie Valin, two exceptional poets, artists themselves. So with 6 Foot Swells Press, when we choose to publish someone, so I may do maybe 2 books per year, and I choose those specifically, just like what you were saying. So I look at it and I see, again, I run it by the same criteria as I run my own work by. Is it believable to me? Do I understand it? And does it move me to like want to go and have a drink with this writer, or to spend a weekend with and just get weird with,
Right.
And I mean, it's pretty easy to spot good writing from just putting words down on the page, to kind of cover. You're going to put as many as you possibly can down.
Cover the page.
Right. Yeah. And so most margin to margin poets, by the time you're done reading all those words, and they're usually like $20 words and this, that, and the other, you don't even remember what the actual poem was about. And so as a publisher, I look for a couple things. One, just like I said, does it move me to the place where I want to get to know this person? And 2, how easy is it to work with this person?
Right.
Maybe that's
man. There's some people out there, they think I have written some amazing poetry and I've won 3 awards from Shithouse Festival Block 101. I won 3 awards from them. I'm entitled to what I think you owe me. I mean, there's some people out there like that.
I once had somebody tell me, actually, they sent me a whole bunch of poems, and I always read everything people send me. I do go through them, but I actually had one person, and it was said to me after I wrote back, well, the poet laureate loves my stuff. And I said, well, send your stuff to the poet laureate then.
Right.
Like,
let them read it.
Yeah, and then you sort of get like if you really look at 6 Foot Swells, like 6footswells.com, and you really look at all of the books and the poets that we've published over the years, there definitely is a theme, meaning it's sort of that arrogance of just sending your stuff, and you clearly know they haven't even looked at the website, and it's like, come on, bro.
Frustrating.
Yeah, at least put that effort in, because I don't need your somebody hurt me when I was 4 years old, so now I'm gonna do all these poems about the cracking of the ice and how the delicate petals have fallen and all that kind of stuff. At least look to see what you're submitting.
Get an idea of, and this is my advice to all writers and poets out there: get an idea of the publisher before submitting, because it's all about the community, being involved with like-minded people and spreading your art and getting people to know you and enjoying the people that you're around as well. So if you're a poet, if you're a novelist, a writer, at least look at the submission guidelines and do some reading on the samples, get an idea of what you're getting your feet into. You don't want to just jump in the water and drown. It's not a good idea. I've tried it. Okay, just don't do it. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be right back with Todd and some of his work.
I'm at that age where I appreciate every sunrise, sunset, and all the hours in between. The age that causes me to notice the rhythmic timing of each breath. A reminder to thank God for granting me another day. I'm at that age where joints begin to stiffen, and maybe I don't move as fluently as I did at 22. But I'm also at that age where I realize many didn't even get to see today. So I pray on bent and aching knee, thank you, God, for blessing me. I'm at that age where I notice my kids making some of the same mistakes that I did. And I remind myself that although never easy, I made it through, and so will they. I'm at that age where I understand that money never buys true happiness. But I'm also at that age where I understand it definitely does help to have a bit. I'm at that age where six-pack abs still attract. But I'm also at that age where the behavior of a true gentleman will stop me in my tracks. I'm at that age where I know what it means to be a woman, along with how to treat my man. Beginning with listening as he explains what he needs from me. You see, there may be many similarities, but all men are not the same. I'm at that age where I realize good things don't come to those who wait. They go to those who educate, plan, sacrifice, work, and repeat over and over and over again. I'm at that age where I appreciate spending time with family, whether we're on good terms or not. Because I'm at that age where I'm losing so many people that I care about. I'm at that age where I'm bearing down on that age where there are more chapters of my life in past instead of future tense. But I'm at that age where I refuse to give up. I continue to climb, to create, to improve, love, and share, bearing my soul to the universe while honoring my ancestors, my God, and myself, while becoming the best version of me possible, because I'm at that age.
Parrot TV, the voice for humanity.
Welcome back to episode 207. I hope you enjoyed Dion Hunter's wonderful poem spoken word performance. Speaking of direct language, I think we should get her on the show to teach us how to quantify men, because she makes the comment in there where she says she understands that all men are not qualified a certain way. They're not all the same. So we should get her on the show to tell us what that means. Anyway, excellent performance from her. And we'll move into Todd's work. So Todd, if you are prepared, let's hear some poetry from you.
Sure. Yeah. I'll do 3 quick short ones and then one semi-long one, but it's only a page.
Okay, that's fine.
All right.
Excellent.
Oh, what?
Sorry. Go for it. All yours. We're playing hide and seek today.
Yeah, that's all right. The prisoner. I can still smell you on my pillowcase, in the comforter and sheets. Thought about doing laundry, but decided to keep you with me just a little while longer. Riding giants. Each new love affair is like standing in front of a 50-foot wave. It looked doable from shore. Gifts. The son of a bitch left me broke and blacked out, with a stripper's name written in black Sharpie on my forearm. 3 bright orange traffic cones in my bedroom and a 2-day hangover. He is the best friend ever. Wishful thinking. We kissed once. It was on the corner of Rampart Street in St. Peter in New Orleans. I wish I could say it was that magic movie moment with the perfect song, perfect setup, lighting just right, and bright orange moon overhead. Anticipation giving way to action like the final scene in 16 Candles when the 2 main characters are kissing on a table, birthday cake shining with lit candles in between and nothing left to wish for. And when the credits rolled, everyone was already halfway home, satisfied and happy with what the stars brought to them. But our kiss wasn't like that. It was sloppy. We were drunk. The music sucked. There was spilled beer and strangers crowding our space. We could not really call it romantic. We could only admit that it happened once. There have been no second chances. I have had 1,000 more moments between that kiss and today, some amazing, others incredible, fulfilling, and fun, but all have put me here, back here, alone, staring at the stars, with only one wish left.
It's a lot of observational, and like you said, your part of your aesthetic is the direct language. You shouldn't have to explain the poem, so I want to explicate it, but I'll say I see the literary technique in combination with the sort of democratic, what you would call plain language, plain spoken. There's a little bit of humor there, and there's a lot of kind of a touch of irony in some places. It's very excellent work. Thank you for sharing those.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, Dustin. Yeah, you have to be willing to put yourself out onto the railroad tracks,
Right. Do you think that experience itself, writers, I think we interviewed a writer not too long ago, and I interviewed her for my journal as well. Her name was Christine Sloan Stoddard. And one of the things she said that I found interesting was she kind of liked to go to dark places where there's a lot of trouble in the world to learn about people and understand where they're coming from. And she found that to be an inspiration for her artwork and for her writing. And so I think that, when you say you have to just kind of go ahead and lay yourself on the tracks, experience is like the greatest thing that we have for life, just going out and sometimes just getting ourselves in trouble and doing stupid things we shouldn't be doing. I don't recommend it, but go do it anyway, just because I said so.
Yeah, see, I probably wouldn't have put the disclaimer on it only because, I enjoy I have a tolerance for certain weirdness, but I do believe there's, again, to make it believable, there's something if you have the scars to prove it, and I'm not saying, again, like you said, you don't have to necessarily go out and do it, but to at least be open to the idea of whatever that moment was. And if it has a commonality for the reader in it, where they can go, Oh shit, yeah. You know, like I totally understand where this is going. Well then, you know, wonderful. We can chalk that up to a victory. But there are certain personalities that do have to put themselves out there. And I often find that in order to write, I have to create the space for something like that to occur, you know, and then I think, or at least I like to hope that people then respond to something that is so clear, and you have to be willing to turn it on yourself, right? You can't be the hero. You can't be the hero of every story. Yeah, sometimes you have to be the sucker.
I think it's good when and writers to self-reflect quite a bit and think about who they are and what they're doing and what it means in the moment, as well as reflect later back at what's happened and think about it and use that as sort of fodder for their literary canon. And I say that CONNON, not canon as in CONAN or whatever. But yeah, I think I totally agree with you on the, you know, just experiencing and jumping in and just kind of going into a life and with an open mind and open heart, and also at the same time being willing to address yourself in a very honest way. That's the writer's best tool, is get a very strict, honest reflections of themselves, I think.
Yeah, and I mean, to me, it just benefits the words, and it certainly hopefully benefits the reader. It's like, well, because there's a whole difference. Like E. Cummings, okay, so that's great, but who can really like that? Like that's not believable. It's not something that we can sort of hold on to. And you know, surrealists, I have a difficult time with it. There's some Lorca stuff that's just stunning, but you know, there's not a large audience that can sort of jump on that train. And so like in writing like that, it's like a lot of MFA writers, they essentially can get to the point where they're just writing for other MFA writers, you know, or workshop writers, something like that, you know.
I wondered in terms, you know, you mentioned Lorca. Lorca was one of my early favorites, and I had another early favorite. I wondered if what you thought of this guy, and it's going to be a strange name, but you'll know who it is. But you'll wonder why I'm asking. Jim Morrison. Have you ever read his poetry? What do you think?
Yeah, Dustin. That is awesome, man. I'm glad you brought that up, and I'll tell you why. Not because I'm a huge fan of Jim Morrison's poetry, because I do think it's a lot of adolescent. It's where all of us begin.
Yeah, absolutely.
However, I have a wonderful friend, the poet Jake St. John, who is a huge Morrison fan and can do Morrison justice. Whereas, like, I think we all have to start somewhere, and just the fact that Jim went out there on his own and called himself a poet when he was the biggest rock star on the planet, that's where credit is deserved. But you talk about somebody who lived and went for the experiences of sort of like Jim Morrison was probably the best after hours poet who didn't write after hours poetry, you know?
Yeah, he had a statement in one of his books. He did like an aesthetic statement. He says, "Listen, man, real poetry doesn't say anything. It just ticks off the possibilities."
Yeah, absolutely. And then I'll tell you what, one of my favorite Jim Morrison's line is, "I'd rather have a feast of friends than the giant family."
Absolutely.
Love that, man. Love that. And, you know, and what's interesting is, like I said, if you start with the Lords and the New Creatures, or the American Night, you know, whatever it may be, or Wilderness, you know, a lot of his books, and it moves you to other places, then you know, kudos to Jim, whatever bathtub he's currently laying in, you know.
Right.
The same with like Edgar Allan Poe. I started with Poe. I to this day I think that the opening paragraph in A Telltale Heart is one of the greatest paragraphs of all literature. It's so visceral. And again, the language is so crisp and it's clean. It's like a surgical knife. Every single sentence is cutting into you, you know.
Absolutely. It's yeah, there's reasons why some of these guys stick around and their literary works, kind of stick to the culture and stick around, and we still read them 150 years later. And there's a good reason for that, and it's something about the work and the use of language. It moves people. It makes you think, and as far as Poe, I mean, his stories are so compelling.
Yeah.
He's also a very inventive writer, and he's invented detective stories. I mean, he has a vast body of work that no one really knows about. He's not just a horror and supernatural kind of writer. He's he got a lot of stuff that he's written. Essays on aesthetics, everything. Just anything you can imagine about an artist, he covered it. And Jim Morrison, they just recently released his collected body of poetry in the hardback, and I don't have it yet. I've got all 3 of the books, but I haven't seen the new one with all the lyrics and everything in it. But I got into him, and I was just like, wow, man, this guy's he's wild. I mean, and he had some of his favorites, like Nietzsche, for instance, were people that I had already had been admiring for years. And when I first got into his poetry, I looked at it, I was like, wow, this is something unusual to me. It's very different from the traditional, Emily Dickinson or, the flower poetry, I would call it, because that's what they teach you in high school. I call it flower poetry. It's like, it's pretty nature stuff. And, and they give you the angle that, that they think you should take. And it's not really as interesting and as vivid as stuff like, other things you can get into. And, I think they try to keep you calm in schools.
Well, yeah, of course, right. And so now we're getting into a whole Pink Floyd trip, right?
Right.
But I'll tell you about Jim Morrison now, because now you really got me thinking. And so you're a very good interviewer that way. To me, I would much rather read the lyrics to LA Woman than most of the stuff that he put into, let's say, Lords and New Creatures or something like that. I mean, I think that's a poem,
right.
The city at night, cops in bars, cops in cars, the topless bars, again,
right.
And that's something that people, who are driving through Los Angeles can see, can experience. Yeah, man. And that just happens to be one of my favorite songs. That and The Changeling, I love that.
Yeah, I read. I think the first I read his Wilderness and the American Night, and then when I got the Lords and New Creatures, it really baffled me because he said, I mean, from what I understand, this was his only actual book that he put together himself, and I see the cohesion in it. I see where he's going with it and what he's trying to say to a degree, but it's very abstract. It's very loose, kind of aphoristic. And it's interesting. It's great work, and I think he definitely merits the title of poet, just on that alone, in my opinion. And his other work and his lyrics and his performance style and his way of being so inspired by all these various international arts, especially modern and contemporary stuff when he was in performance, and how he's inspired by French theater and things like that. I mean, he's definitely a full-fledged artist. He didn't get that credit so much in his time. He was kind of like, the crazy drug shaman guy, that, exposed himself on stage and, is not given the credit. And I think releasing his collected poetry as a full book may give him elevate him as a literary person too, as well.
Yeah, maybe. And actually 2 things on that, right? So one is I can talk all the shit that I want, but when I was in Paris, both times I went and visited his grave. Along with Oscar Wilde is there in Pierre Lachaise and all that. But then 2, another one of the greatest things of Jim Morrison's, and maybe I'll butcher the line, I don't know, but something like did you have a good world when you died, enough to base a movie on? Great line, man. Great line,
reflective stuff. I mean, you can tell he's again this very self-reflective artist. I mean, he's much bigger than a rock star. That's his persona. Of course, most people know him as the rock star, but he's definitely much larger than that.
yeah, and I think once again, he was someone that you could have a beer with.
Mm-hmm.
Like you could sit down and you could actually create an experience that would possibly become a poem later, So
in comparison and contrast, if we're talking about rock stars that were varied artists, how would you relate Kurt Cobain into this figure? And that's another interesting person I really like, to think about in terms of, Jim Morrison being poetic and, having these wide experiences and these depth of emotions and stuff. And then you look at some of the style of Kurt Cobain's writing. I mean, what can we say in contrast and comparison? These rock stars are like, or Leonard Cohen is another example of an artist who's using music to convey, this language, because they're very poetic lyrics. They're not really pop star style lyrics,
Yeah, and again, it's a fantastic subject to have. So as far as like Kurt Cobain, I would say that in some ways, what's interesting about Kurt Cobain is in his suicide note, who does he reference? He references Neil Young.
Mm-hmm.
So I like to look at where the people's touchstones are,
mm-hmm.
and go back to that, because Kurt really, his lyrics, okay, fine.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily consider them poetry,
right?
I think, and he isolated himself, an incredible amount. And so I think between him and like Jim Morrison, I think Jim Morrison lived the poetry more, and
mm-hmm.
and in some ways was the more authentic one,
Poetically speaking, yeah. I actually agree with you on that. And I'm a huge Kurt Cobain fan. I'm like the biggest Kurt Cobain fan ever. But I like the dynamics of his music. He's a powerful, powerful performer and persona out there. So it's been really nice talking with you, Todd. I hope you also enjoyed the conversation. We're going to go ahead and close out. So if you want to have a last message for our viewers.
Oh, yeah. I would just simply say go out, have fun, get weird, and learn poetry as a craft. Learn to craft a good poem.
Excellent. Do you have any shout outs or thank yous you'd like to throw out for any viewers out there, any people you'd like to say, hey, thanks for supporting me over the years?
Absolutely. So we'll go with Wolfgang, the poet and publisher Wolfgang Karstens of Epic Rights Press, Julie
mm-hmm.
Belen, Matt Amott, Bill Gaynor. Again, I said Jake St. John earlier. John Patrick Robbins, who does Whiskey River Press. Mm-hmm. And really just, hey, man, if you're ever in New Orleans, come by. I'll buy you a beer.
Excellent. Yeah, I need to make a trip to New Orleans myself at some point. Yeah, same goes if you're in Houston, stop by. You'll find a lot of interesting people around here.
Yeah, I believe that. Yeah.
So many dynamics going on here in Houston. It's kind of wild. There's all kinds of people and interesting places. Thanks for joining us on the show today, Todd. It's been really interesting talking to you. It's kind of interesting hearing the thoughts about rock stars and their various aesthetics and how they approached life and the art and poetry and how, we view those kinds of people. So this has been episode 206. And if you guys have been with us from the beginning, I hope you have enjoyed how we've been improving our programming. So if you have any comments or if you would like to drop us a good donation, we'd love your money. We love it. We spend the night with it many times. Donate at paypal.me/nyparrot. There it is on that banner there, that blue banner. Blue is a really nice color, by the way. It's very beautiful. It's the color of the sky most of the time. And if you go outside and look at the sky, write a poem about it. And you can also get our guests on the show for us. You can suggest friends, family, and anybody that's a creative writer or an artist, that would like to be on the program. So we'll get our guest writers. You can address me, Dustin Pickering, at literarycorner@newyorkparrot.com. You can see that at the bottom there. You might want to be a guest, or you might want to suggest somebody to get in touch with us. So feel free. What we would like to see from you is a paragraph bio and a headshot. And if you'd like to send a couple of sample works so we can get an idea of what your poetic style or your writing style is, then do that as well. It's up to you. So again, this has been episode 207, and keep a lookout. Pretty soon we will have the anthology we have been preparing, series 2 of the Literary Parrot, coming out December 1st. That'll be excellent timing for Christmas. Buy 100 copies for friends and family, distribute them on the streets. We need to get the word out about what we're doing. We're here for creative writers, and we love your support, and we're trying to build an excellent platform, and we'll keep doing this until, sun and the moon fall in the sky, and et cetera, as the Doors song goes. Just keep supporting us, and we will support you as well. We want to be a very good and solid platform for creative writers. There's not a lot of, talk of poetry and writing anymore. It seems like it's not very mainstream a lot of times. And again, if you want to support us through donations, paypal.me/nyparrot. If you have a thing against PayPal, well, sorry, we do too, but we use them anyway. But anyway, getting back to the program, just keep watching. Our viewers, subscribe to our channel. Bleep, blank. Yeah, just hit that YouTube subscribe button, little red button there. It says subscribe. We need subscribers. We all love subscribers. It's better than a magazine. I'm telling you. If you subscribe to a magazine, you're probably wasting your time there. But if you subscribe to our program, we are the best and only TV station for a global platform for international writers, and we'll continue to be that until the time ends. So definitely go out, have a great afternoon, have a beer, have a drink on me. Not on me. Don't pour it on me. Please don't. I don't like being poured on. But anyway, just have a great afternoon. Get some writing done, some reading, do something fun for yourself. Thank you guys for watching. And thanks.
Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Parrot TV. Listen to the people. Listen to humanity. Listen to the parrot. Parrot TV. 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 Parrot TV.
The Literary Corner, brought to you by New York Parrot TV.